This is the best of First and Last, the podcast.
Last night, the Cavs bust out their brooms yet again. LeBron James going to the Eastern Conference Finals yet again. And at this point, all we're left to do is basically just sit and marvel at what continues to be a postseason spectacle in the Eastern Conference, unlike anything we've really ever seen before. The Cavaliers went out last night in a closeout game against the Raptors, a Raptors team that was without Kyle Lowry, who was hobbled by injury coming out of Game 3, and, well, went and did everything that we've come to expect from a LeBron James-led team, now on its 7th straight trip to the Eastern Conference Finals, 3rd straight trip with the Cleveland Cavaliers. And over that run, LeBron James has been nothing short of sensational. Last night, as we continue to look at LeBron and Jordan stats that compare, LeBron James surpassed Michael Jordan in his record in series-clinching games in the playoffs, now 31-9, with the chance to clinch the series in the playoffs. They eliminate the Raptors, their 2nd straight sweep of this postseason. They're the first team in NBA history to open the playoffs 8-0 in consecutive seasons, speaking to their domination in the Eastern Conference. LeBron James in his games since Game 5 of the 2016 Finals is now 11-0, averaging just under 35 points a game, 9.7 assists per game, 7.8 rebounds per game, and is shooting 54% from the field. That is Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, half the cost. Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable networks. What else do we want from this guy at this point right now? A guy who has mastered not only what it takes, his understanding of is going to the regular season, but we joked about it a lot going into the playoffs with this team on defense, that ability to flip the switch. Well, LeBron James is the human postseason switch. LeBron James is a guy with such a unique understanding of this time of year, how to use the rest afforded to them, that now in 2 straight series he'll have on the front and back end of what they've been able to do. LeBron James speaking to that end last night after the game, talking about the difference between this team from the end of the regular season to what we've seen so far in the postseason.
Yeah, we're healthy. We're healthy. And we got more practice time during the playoffs than we got in the whole month of March because of injuries and because we was on the road so much. So it's benefited our team a lot.
And that's a big thing. And LeBron James, by the way, on a separate day, we could do a whole story about LeBron James, the Greek god of the postgame presser. Because as much as we love interesting sound here, like this is the two worlds I'm caught between, where I love all the interesting sound we've been getting in the NBA, but as a player I would sit there and cringe because you're taught to not really give the media anything to go on. That was always kind of something I did, and so I enjoy when we get all of the great sound that we got out of post-game pressers in round 1, but watching LeBron James up at the podium after a game or on the microphone in the post-game interview right after the game, when you think you would be the most hopped up on the energy and the adrenaline of the game, to just sit there and so easily and masterfully dictate out his points to whoever's listening and get them across in a very easy, non-abrasive way is in and of itself an art form that he has completely mastered.
The only way we get interesting sound from LeBron is when we make it out to be something it's not, or manufacture a story.
Or in the month of January.
Yeah. This is another great example of what you're talking about. So here's him last night. Hey, LeBron, do you care who you guys face in the next round?
It doesn't matter to me. I'm excited about us. It's an opportunity to represent our franchise, represent us in the Eastern Conference Finals to go play for the big one. So it doesn't matter.
It's like he's got the book of sports cliches like on the desk in front of us. Like, represent the team, represent the city, got it. Looking forward to playing for a championship, check. Yep, all the boxes.
Oh, you hear him go right through it every time talking about his teammates last night. All I heard from him, he said the same thing about a couple different guys. Got championship DNA. Asked about Kyle Korver, who has been absolutely money for them now in this postseason run, too. Just his ability to go out there, and you watch him within the body of the game, affect the game. Such a great player moving around, coming off screens, that opens it up for other guys because you see guys hedge off screens to try and go help on Kyle Korver. There was a very clear play last night where you saw Kyle Korver going out to the three-point line, his man hedge off, LeBron's able to roll to the basket and then go from there. And you get him talking about him. He said, what's the best thing Kyle Korver's done for you guys? Well, it's show up every day with his professionalism and his ability to help this team. Like, that's who he is. Another guy LeBron had tons of confidence in coming off the series, and rightly so, was his teammate Kyrie Irving. He talked about that here.
Guys knew from the time I came back 3 years ago that he was one of the guys that I singled out. You see the talent. And once you put the talent and then the experience and then the mind, you really start to see what he's capable of doing. And I sensed that. It's just I got here was 22 years old. I had been a part of some losing seasons, and did he build some bad habits? I don't know. I wasn't a part of the franchise at that point in time, but the habits that he's built over the last 3 years have put him in a position where you can always rely on him, no matter what's going on. So, it's definitely great to have him.
Now, I guess I should hedge my comments from before saying when LeBron wants to be great at this particular skill, like pretty much everything else he does. When he wants to be great at something, spoiler alert, he usually is. But we do know that the month of January comes around every year where he's very publicly critical, usually in some, offhanded ways, whether it's through cryptic social media posts or sort of snide remarks to the media about fitting out or fitting in, and the things that we've come to expect from him in certain junctions that can seem kind of petty, but when he turns it on like this, it's masterful to watch, like the rest of his game is. And so it brings up an interesting point for me now, the discussion that we had going into last week. We talked a lot about LeBron James as he passed Michael Jordan, or is getting ready to pass Michael Jordan on the all-time scoring list in the postseason. We just mentioned another record, the in game-clinching opportunities. He passed Michael Jordan for that record in the postseason as well. And you start to look at the body of work. We understand the Eastern Conference is a little weaker. Everyone talks about how much more difficult Jordan's path was through the East. But my question was this. If we look at the eventuality we're all pointing towards this year, which is a hopeful Golden State-Cleveland rubber match, which that's a whole other separate subject, 888-729-3776. Is that the one we're looking for? Is that me in the media sitting there and seeing a rubber match from the last two seasons and saying, I want this to determine it all? I want the bloated monstrosity of Golden State adding Kevin Durant to take a crack at the King? Or is that wishful thinking and fans are looking for new blood in there? But really, the question becomes, okay, if you take it out to that and LeBron and this team that are looking as dominant as anyone in the league, Golden State included on offense right now, the way they're able to move the ball, the potent scorers that we have around LeBron James, if he's able to go up against this Golden State Warriors team, the team coming off of 73-9 last year, that went out and added Kevin Durant after blowing a 3-1 lead. They were on the precipice of winning back-to-back titles and having the best regular season and postseason record of all time, then went out and added Kevin Durant and became an even better version of themselves. If LeBron beats that team after a year before beating the 73-9 Golden State Warriors team, is there a more impressive back-to-back year of victories over what we thought was an all-time great team in Golden State? Is that in itself more impressive than anything on Michael Jordan's resume? That's my question. Was there anything along that run? Like, I understand undefeated in championship games is going to be hard to top, but when you look at who he beat in all of those, when you look at who he beat over the course of any of those, is there a stretch as impressive as potentially beating, if we go out and see where this goes, back-to-back Golden State Warriors, best regular season record team, followed by Golden State Warriors that added Kevin Durant?
First and last, the podcast.
Last night in the NBA, also had a couple of other games going on last night. A couple of series get tied up, but in blowout fashion. First, the Washington Wizards even it at 2 apiece with a 121-102 win, highlighted by, in the third quarter, a 26-0 run, which seems insane that that's even possible in a professional basketball game, but here we are sitting there. And then later in the nightcap, Houston beat San Antonio 125-104, looking a lot more like the Houston team we saw take game one in dominant fashion, looking like the Houston team that I said comparatively had sort of, Golden State elements to it as far as how they were able to push in on offense and what a threat that made them. To that point, these series are now both tied at 2 apiece. It's a good note from JBT last night in the email thread. They're tied at 2 apiece with every game being decided by double figures in both series.
Which oddly includes the overtime game between the Celtics and Wizards in Game 2.
I didn't even think about that. You had an overtime game mixed in there that still ultimately ended in a decisive win, a decisive run by the Celtics there. And I joked last night, but it's true. This was the 2016 NBA playoffs. I mean, we only have to remember as far back as last year where, yeah, we had what felt like a lot of competitive series like this where it's an even series. You now got a best of 3 going through the end run. But we set a record for postseason blowouts for 25-plus point wins in last year's postseason. That was the identity of last year before all of the 3-1 lead jokes that really started in the Western Conference Finals with Oklahoma City and what turned out to be the death rattle for them, and then Golden State famously taking the mantle, the hold my beer of 2016 that echoed through eternity from them. And now that's carried over here. So I guess it sort of begs the question now here with, is this all we have to reach for in some of these other series, too, where you've got outcomes like this that last night seemed decided pretty handily at a certain point, not long into the second half. Again, it was the third quarter, really, in the Celtics game that blew this wide open. But other than that, these games are well in hand. Are we forced to root for, the other ancillary storylines? Are we forced to root for Kelly Oubre, who was suspended? Shout out to his team for putting on for their goon, going out there, missing Game 4 because of the suspension resulting from the hit from Kelly Olynyk in Game 3. Are we forced to root for those other things as some source of entertainment in series that aren't inherently entertaining game to game at times because of this, but also that feel kind of hollow in the way that we've talked about all season, where, again, it feels like we're in a 2-horse race just trying to convince ourselves of otherwise. And one of the things we have rooted for and gotten throughout the first round was post-game presser sound. We mentioned LeBron James, really at this time of year, like he does with the rest of his basketball skill set, spinning it into high gear, not giving us anything. Well, Isaiah Thomas saw fit to do otherwise last night.
They were allowing them to be very physical with me, coming off ball screens, coming off pin downs. And all I'm saying is I felt like when I tried to be physical with them on the other end, there were fouls. And when guys went to the hole and maybe got hit a little bit on layups, there were fouls. And then when we went to the hole, especially myself, I'm hitting the ground and there's no calls. The calls should definitely be a little more even as to in the season where I might have been top 5 in free throws.
I understand the frustration, but man, that's not the look right there. That's not the time for it, especially in a playoff series that I think up until now, like we've talked about Isaiah Thomas probably in his ability to be a little more physical than most because of his size. Like because of his stature, he kind of gets away with things under the guise of being that smaller guy, much in the same way we always talk about guys like Shaq and LeBron who famously sort of go the other way because of how big they are. You see bodies bounce off of them, and because they're so big, it's not always called in the same vein and in the same degree as these other guys. So you've got Isaiah checking our box there of criticized referees and post-game after a win right there. On the other side, in San Antonio, we've got Greg Popovich, who decided that if no one was going to do their jobs, he was going to do this.
I got a whole bottle of water here.
No one decided to raise their hand and had questions for Pop, and so he shifted his focus elsewhere as he tends to do. We saw, again, this sort of joking pop up in the losses as opposed to the win column for the San Antonio Spurs where he morphs back into his usual curmudgeon-y self.
It's the same as LeBron and the opposite. He gives you nothing, but in such a different way.
Well, he gives you nothing in the way that you really get nothing because he's not concerned with, like you said, feeding you sports cliches. Like that's what Pop rebukes at his very core, right, is the sports cliche. So he's going to look, if you try and feed him anything along those lines, he's basically going to regurgitate it back at you like you're an idiot.
Back to Isaiah, though, if you're going to complain about the refs, there's only one way to do it.
Take that for data.
It's so true. You can't do it as matter-of-factly as Isaiah did.
No, it comes across as whiny and complaining. You got to get angry.
But they're not going to rook us.
Not going to rook us. Take note, Isaiah, for next time. You've been a guy that's been beloved throughout this postseason run, a guy who's gone out there and put on in big moments for your team, been the guy. If anyone is mustered up enough clout to get away with something like that, it should be you, but delivery is important.
And it's not, I'm not in general against sort of criticizing officiating because I think it will help you moving forward. You're trying to plant the seed. Hey, keep an eye on this. I just think there's a way to do it, right?
There's decorum, like everything else. This is sports. This is entertainment. So you've got to understand that the way you inject it out there is vital. And I'm with you. I'm all for criticizing referees when it's warranted because they're a group that often, I'd say, skates blame for their role in certain games, unless it's egregious. Like we saw with the Red Sox-Orioles the other day, when an umpire injects himself so directly into the fabric of a game, then we sort of lose our minds. But in other instances, they're not held to the same standard that the other two-thirds of the game, being the two teams in question, are held to. So Isaiah, absolutely, do your thing in that regard. Just remember, give us a better soundbite in the process. That's all we really ask. That's always really demand on our end right here. And I don't think that's asking too much, considering what we've seen in the games again here. If you're going to give us double-digit blowouts more often than not in this series, sweeten the deal for us as best you can. Signed, guys in the media who you don't really owe anything to, as I would remind you as the former player.
First and last.
I got back from a flight late last night, walked back in the door at home probably 1:30 in the morning, sometime around then. Flip on the TV, just figuring, I'd catch SportsCenter. I was coming off a plane. I hadn't checked Twitter in a while. Figured I'd check SportsCenter, see how basketball had ended, check some other things out. And I look, and the Cubs and the Yankees are still playing. And at that point, they were in the 14th. This one goes all the way to 18. And I come in this morning now, and producer guy Dan Z has convinced himself and is trying to convince us that this is further proof that baseball needs something now more than ever. Ties.
Yeah, this game should have ended in a tie 2 hours before it actually ended, and all 200 people got the resolution they were so desperately seeking.
Yeah, so this is always interesting to me. Again, like the dumb idea of fixing baseball that always comes up, like the sports talk gods are just looking down at us and smiling right now for us glorifying us in this way. Like sacrificing fixing baseball at the altar of the sports talk radio gods is tried and true.
We got a little LeBron Jordan in the first segment too. So
that is true. We
talked about LeBron checking off cliche boxes. We're really hitting those sports talk radio cliches.
We are the thing that we resent most in this world. It's like anything else. You always become what you hate. And we'll get back to that in a little bit. We'll take some calls from you guys, too. Because
and should Pete Rose be in the Hall of Fame?
That is true. We probably need
throwing it out there.
Yeah, probably need to do that. He does deserve it, by the way. I'd let Pete in. But that's a story for another day. And the story right now is Dan Z thinks there should be ties in baseball. And I guess here's my argument against it is, for me, and I think for parts of the television audience, because you've got to separate groups of fans. And I held this over from when we talked about this with the NBA rest conversation, which is that didn't really become a conversation until it started affecting TV dollars and the television audience, is we don't really make a ton of decisions in sports of real value with the in-stadium fan in mind. Because at this point, they're kind of a given. Like, we've seen attendance fluctuate in different sports, but it all comes down to the eyeballs on television screen because that drives the majority of the money that's going to come in, and go into the pot that goes in for the players and owners, et cetera. That's why we see the jump in NBA salaries, the NFL salary cap continuing to go up in big ways over the last few years, all that good stuff. And so with that in mind, yeah, you're going to get people that are leaving the baseball stadium early. I mean, Dan, you're talking about a baseball trip you've got coming up early, later this summer, where you've already built in the fact that you will probably leave early from most of these games, even excluding the idea that they could go past regulation.
I'm going to a baseball next Sunday night baseball, Yankees Astros. It's Derek Jeter Day. They're going to retire his number and do a ceremony and all that. We've already discussed 10:30 is sort of being the time that we walk out of Yankee Stadium, regardless if it's like a 9-9 awesome slugfest. Like, we've got stuff to do.
And you know what? That's understandable because it's a regular season Major League Baseball game. We talk about the value of regular season games, and with 162, one feels like a drop in the bucket every time. It's just really hard to place any true, sincere amount of value in one single game outside of a moment like that where you get a retirement ceremony or you get one stellar event. And so what I'd argue that a lot of these bloated inning counts and the things that come with it, one of my favorite things in sports, which is, position players going in and pitching and things like that, where you get guys playing out of position, similar to a tight end playing tackle in the NFL or a D lineman coming over to play guard when you're down bodies, is you not only get that, but you get part of the spectacle, like what we always talk about with sports. And so, yeah, you'll have people that were going to be watching this game anyway. And then you'll have people like me who would have been more inclined if I was sitting around and not on a plane to say, oh, look, this game's gone to 14 innings. Might as well see what's going on here. Might as well see what all the fuss is about when it's tightly contested, when you see some of the back and forth going on there. I would be more inclined to tune in when I saw something like this building towards a potential dramatic finish, building towards something that's outside of the norm, and I'd be interested to see if that would grab more people than not, because that's one side of it, is I think that has the potential to maybe bring more eyeballs in on the television side than it would have otherwise, knowing that you're sacrificing part of the in-game experience for the fans there.
But let's say this wasn't Sunday night baseball, and it was just a regular season game on a Tuesday night, and it was between the A's and the Twins or something. I mean, who's going to see 15, 16 innings and, have the ability to tune into that game, because unless you've got some sort of MLB package, it's not available to you anyway. And A's, Twins, I mean, this was Cubs, Yankees, and this was Sunday night baseball. But even still, this game ended at 2 o'clock in the morning. How many people are staying up to watch a baseball game? I would argue that it doesn't really bring the number of people that it may have brought in is so negligible that when we talk about the regular season being sort of meaningless, at least on a game-by-game basis, that shortening the benches and the bullpens for these teams for the next 2 or 3 days, just not worth it. I mean, I was talking to the guys hey, at a certain point, if I were the catcher, I'd just whisper to the guy hey, man, fastball.
Yeah.
Just sit back. It's coming.
Got one.
Please put it in the seats. Got
one coming for you. Oh, listen, there's absolutely an element from the player side. There's absolutely an element of, again, this is one of 62. Man, I'm just ready for this thing to be over. We've all hit that point at certain points in time throughout a playing career where you're just ready for it to be done. But that in of itself is an interesting conversation, one that we were also having, which is we kind of crave that. We crave some sort of definitive outcome in all this, right? We crave, as you put it, Dan, we crave resolution in a way that's kind of unique to our sports culture here in America, where ties aren't really the norm. And I'd say that shows up nowhere bigger than anytime we've got country versus country in soccer, whether it's the World Cup or whether it's the Olympics. For soccer, when it brings it to the U.S. in a way that's outside of the normal soccer fans, when you have to have the rest of our country reconcile with the fact that you can tie in the group stages, you can even lose, but as long as you've got the point totals and other things have broken well for you in those early rounds, you can still move on. We can tie with Germany, and that can still be a good thing for us points-wise in that stage, and I always see people having a difficult time wrestling with that.
But American sports has playoffs. So ultimately, yes, you might not get that resolution on, May 8th. But you're going to get that resolution in October. I'm not advocating for ties in the playoffs because it doesn't work. Like, if you got to play all into the night in the playoffs, that's fine. And we're going to have an eventual champion who wins a game and is on the court, on the field, on the ice, and they're going to win a championship in that moment. So you get the resolution at the end of the season. All I'm saying is I don't understand why we need it every night. In fact, I would argue we don't. It's greedy.
It is greedy. At the same time, too, playing devil's advocate the other way, the way I sort of love to in this conversation. We're not dealing with this very often. Like, we're not dealing with 18 innings. It feels like very often. I guess I would like to know what the instances are, how many of them there are, where we go over, not only do we go into extras, but do we go over it in a way like this that's so egregious that it does cause these teams residual effects for, days later and, going into other series following this.
I mean, of course, the 18-inning marathon certainly puts a spotlight on it. But, I mean, even 12, 13-inning games really put a strain on a team just because of the way teams are constructed to play baseball day-to-day as far as bullpens and benches are concerned and not wanting to use pitchers because that can mess up your entire week. I'm saying tie after 11, but what about this? What about the international rules? So in international, we saw this a lot in the World Baseball Classic. Once they get to the 11th inning, they put runners on first and second. And you start the inning with runners on, and that expedites the process.
Well, yeah, and they tried this out in the minors this year, didn't they? They started experimenting with that as a rule in the minors, did they not, JBT?
In certain class rookie levels, they're playing around with different stuff. They're changing the rules here and there. So the very low levels of minor league baseball.
It'll be interesting to see if something like that catches on, where it's not putting a definitive cap, but it's like everything else. It's like every other major rule we have built into sports. A lot of them are built to increase scoring, to expedite that process, and to give you more offense in a time right there where it would behoove everyone to get this thing moving along.
Right, and I think the thing that would hold baseball back from something like this is it's such a numbers-based culture that you don't want to artificially inflate numbers. I know that sounds weird to say when we're talking about baseball because plenty of numbers are artificially inflated. But I would say, so if you drive in a runner from second who was placed there before the inning, no RBI. Guy who's on base, no run scored. Let's take the stats out of it. Because I think there would be an argument, there would be a crowd who would say, well, that's not fair. You're giving RBI opportunities, unearned RBI opportunities in a culture that, or in a financial structure even, that rewards things like runs batted in or hitting in the clutch.
Well, yeah, and I've also heard the argument from some of our baseball people here, the idea of that, all right, what if you get into extras and you've got someone who's taken a no-hitter or something into that element where all of a sudden, you put them at a disadvantage or things like that.
Look, if we've got a 0-0 baseball game in the 11th inning, I don't care about your no-hitter.
That's fair. And I guess that's probably the point in all of this is that this is always being done by the people that care the least about baseball, which I can hear baseball fan cringing at right now.
First and last, the podcast.
We have an apology to send out to you, the listener. We have failed you this morning as a show. We talk about the Greek god of postseason sound. Well, get off your perch, LeBron James. DeMar DeRozan coming through with this fire take, coming off last night's season-ending loss.
If we had LeBron on our team too, we would have won. We could say that. We could say that all day, time, everything, but we didn't. It happened. We got swept, and it's gonna be one of them long summers for us.
Take that for data.
Listen, you can't argue what he said. Take LeBron James, put him on the Raptors. Something tells me you got a pretty good shot of winning that one. What an absolutely insane thing to say right after that game. That's how we talk about, again, like the LeBron effect on the Eastern Conference. That's the LeBron effect on the psyche of other players.
If we had LeBron on our team, too, we would have won.
That's a broken man. That's a broken man. You can hear the child in the background. He's going to have to explain to his child why this wasn't working. And it all goes back to
if we had LeBron on our team, too, we would have won.
Would have won. It's that simple.
We should stop doing our show. I mean, you're not going to be able to have a take more fire than that.
No. That is the hot take of all time. That is hot take alert going away. right there. So if any of you guys can top that, feel free. 888-729-3776. Go to Jarvis in North Carolina. Jarvis, you're on first and last. What's going on?
Hey, what's up, Mike, man? Let me pull over right quick. I'm out here delivering papers, man. How you doing this morning?
I'm doing good. How about yourself? Yeah, listen, stay safe out there. Stay safe.
Appreciate it, brother. Yeah, man. I just saw it. I've been riding around listening to it for almost a week about this debate. I'm 34 from North Carolina, big Tar Heel fan. Love Michael Jordan. Yeah, he was one of the greatest basketball players. 91, 92, 93, 94, 95. I've seen all his NBA championship wins, all of them. He was great. He had Pippen, Rodman, Luke. I mean, even Luke Longley. I mean, there is no comparison to him and LeBron. LeBron is like this awesome athlete. He does everything. You know, he passes, he rebounds, he shoots. He's a leader. You know, Jordan had all those qualities too, and all those traits too. But what I'm watching LeBron do right now, I didn't see Jordan do. You know. I mean, it's just he's leading by example, and it's more like out of sight, out of mind. Nobody's really saw the generation now saw Jordan the way we saw him, but so it's hard for them to compare LeBron to Jordan, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I can understand. It's hard to contextualize, and we appreciate the call, but I guess that is the thing. Is I always try to encourage people to exclude just the ring count in all of this that becomes such an easy part of this conversation. And look, especially for people that did get to see both in their prime, is look at the way their game's constructed and understand and appreciate what LeBron does in all of that. Understand and appreciate that fact that his game is so versatile that we talk about a guy, Greeny. I mean, we bring you guys up to Mike and Mike every Monday through Friday, and one of Greeny's favorite talking points is that he believes LeBron James is the best point guard in the league, playing point forward in sort of the amorphous, positionless NBA that we occupy now. That's part of this deal, is that this is a skill set. When you make that comparison, if you're comparing skill sets, is much closer to a Magic Johnson, and part of that is their size playing in that role as well. But it's that idea that he can be deferential, that so much of LeBron that we see in these series in the playoffs, he spends that first game really probing and trying to make sure that he gets his teammates involved and engaged in a way that can benefit them down a road. And we're seeing a guy now execute so well on a postseason plan that has been hammered into his championship DNA, that buzzword that LeBron wanted to throw around in a lot of these conversations, that's just been put on display in a way that we hardly ever get to see. And I feel like at times still goes underappreciated because we want to have this conversation and scrutinize in a different way. Let's go to Brent in Arkansas. Brent, you're on first and last. Mike Golic Jr., what's going on?
Hey, what's up, Golic? Hey, following up on DeRozan's hot take, if Toronto would have had LeVar Ball, they'd have split Milwaukee and Cleveland. So don't even need LeBron.
Hey, there you go. You want to talk about heat right there. If they were wearing the ZO2s with LeVar Ball as a player coach, then they probably would have been in a much better situation. Brent bringing the fire takes from Arkansas early this morning. Let's go to Walter in North Carolina. Walter, let's see if you can top the hot LeVar Ball take we just dealt with. What's going on?
Hey, what's going on, Mike? Love the show, bro.
Thank you.
Hey, I was thinking, man, maybe the East needs to form a super team. Like, just like hypothetically, got a team like the Bucks. They're pretty good. Maybe someone like Chris Paul, Blake Griffin. Because it's the only way you're going to beat LeBron. They're going to have to stack the deck, man. I think they just need to come together. Everybody might have to take pay cuts or whatever, because it's not working, man. No one regular team is going to beat them. So maybe they just need to squad up, man. I'll take off though. Thanks, man.
Yeah, no, we appreciate the call, and I think it's a worthwhile point because a lot of people would also argue for LeBron that he's got two other All-Stars on that team. They've gone out of their way to build that roster around him, but we know what it looks like with him off the court. We saw a Kyrie Irving-led Cavs team that never even sniffed the playoffs during LeBron's absence, during his time away at quote-unquote fun college down in Miami that he went to. But it does, it's an interesting point now of how do you attack this if you are one of these other marquee superstars. Like we had the Chris Paul conversation about his summer coming up, or Paul George in Indiana, is where do you go from here? And do you go, because so many people want to point those guys to either, Chris Paul and that group staying together in L.A., but is going the Eastern Conference an easier route, knowing, you might have an easier road through the rest of the East, but you still have to deal with that guy on top of the Eastern Conference. Like, why doesn't that get talked about? Yeah, the Eastern Conference is so easy. Why aren't stars migrating to the East then to come and try and knock this guy off his perch? They look out there and they see a guy who is so dominant in the East. Why would they want to deal with that?
But to rehash the AAU conversation, like, these guys are friends. Chris Paul wants to play with LeBron. He's not trying to go to the East and play against him.
Well, yeah, that's the other portion of this. And then so what teams are even primed to make that move? Like we talked about what you want your team to be. Dan, I know you're the Bucks fan on our staff here. They might be in as good a position as anyone with they've got their young superstar in place. He's probably a few years away from being the best version of himself, and that rise to power could most closely mirror the, downfall of LeBron James if it's ever going to come.
Right, I think that's the spot you want to be in, is where the Bucks are, which is they should be good in the next 2 to 3 years as LeBron's getting into those age 35, age 36 seasons. They're young, so they're not part of this crew, the Chris Paul, LeBron James, the Kyrie, the Dwayne Wade. They got their little clique, and they had a chance to form their super team. They did. I think the Bucks are the team in the East that are in the best position to sort of take the throne once this sort of rides it out. But I'm sort of with Mina. I think it's a great take that teams, it might be smart. Just hang on and ride it out.
Or you could be the Boston Celtics, put out a pretty compelling product right now, and be stacking picks for days going in. Those Nets picks, they've been the subject of conversation for the last year and change, and they're not going anywhere. So maybe that's the team that can do both.
First and last.
We're going to hit you guys with some hockey guy love coming up here soon. But we have a lot of other interesting conversations in the works right now. So on Twitter, we've spawned an interesting conversation. You guys can get at us on the 1-800-Flowers Twitter feed, at ESPN Radio, at Golic Jr. 57. We were talking about last night in baseball. The Yankees and the Cubs went 18 innings. Spawned the conversation of does baseball need ties? Dan Z argues yes. I argue that the spectacle, the freak show of these long games is a draw in and of itself, especially on a national stage like Sunday Night Baseball. So we got to other people talking about things that they believe are too long, which include, now at this point, Monday Night Raw. Kevin Martinez tweets in 60 minutes on CBS, too long. Mike Dropper tweets in commercials, too long, unless they're on our air. Shout out to the sponsors. Love you guys. You're the best. Can't have enough commercials, in my opinion. Choose Shell V-Power Nitro Plus Premium Gasoline for the best total engine protection that you can get. I'm going to give myself the Akeem Nicks laugh on that one. The only one of these I disagreed with was hour-long 30 for 30s. Defeats the whole 30 thing. I disagree. A, I don't think that was part of the 30 for 30 model to begin with. And B, the OJ Made in America 30 for 30 is the best thing we've done as a network. And that could have been 25 hours. And we'd have all been there for it because it was fantastic. So we've got that going on Twitter. You can keep those up. I'm greatly enjoying the things that you guys believe are much too long in this world. 8-hour workday. Shout out to that. Also way too long. But we've also been having the debate as it pertains to LeBron James and his dominance in the Eastern Conference. And whether that's what would you want your team to do if you're one of those Eastern Conference teams faced with the baseball bat of defeat that is LeBron James stomping you guys out year after year. Or the one I posed at the beginning of the show, and I think is a valid point that I made this weekend, which is if LeBron James is able to go on now, we've seen him dominate in these first two rounds, dominate over the stretch of the last 7 years in the Eastern Conference. If he is able to, in back-to-back years, go and we get the potential matchup we all see, if it's LeBron James against Golden State plus Kevin Durant this year, and he's able to go out at the clip they're going now and beat this team a year after beating the 73-9 Golden State team that we all thought was unstoppable then, is that 2-year stretch more impressive than anything Michael Jordan or anyone else did over the course of their careers? Because for my money, that's going to be hard to beat. Like that's going out there. That would have been Jordan beating his own 96 Bulls teams. And we're talking about LeBron James beating the teams that were built specifically to stop him. Like that Kevin Durant ad, you could argue, a lot of people argued, wouldn't have happened had they won that series. So it was a direct result of the LeBron James effect that the Eastern Conference has been feeling for 7 years.
By the same token, if the Cavs should get there and fall short, I don't want to hear LeBron couldn't do it. Let's not denigrate him too much if he does lose to this once again, historically great basketball team.
No, but this is an interesting point here, is to your point, like as far as reactions to certain things, yeah, I completely agree. LeBron James dispelled that last year. Like that was the championship last year that said, hey, like, listen, I got this. I've done everything that you guys have asked me to do. But Aaron tweets into us at @Hoskins1028. If LeBron loses to the Warriors after they added KD, does he go after someone like Paul George in free agency to add a fourth the way that Golden State did? Now, you could argue Cleveland is in no position to do that because they're already over the luxury tax mark. They would never be able to offer him the max deal the way these other teams are going to be able to. So that's sort of a nonsensical idea, but I guess in theory, the idea that you'd go after another high-profile playmaker, the word LeBron likes to use.
All I'm interested in that tweet is the phrasing, which was, does he go after? My LeBron player GM already in effect.
Oh, yeah. The player GM, the LeVar Ball that our caller brought up before.
I just want the press conference where they announce the signing of someone like Paul George, and LeBron's the guy who makes the opening statement.
He goes up there. Listen, again, the Greek god of the press conference. Sure, he would do just fine in that role. Let's go to Big John in Columbus. Big John, you're on first and last. Mike Golic Jr. What's going on?
Hey, thanks a lot, guys, for taking my call. Mainly, I listen to you guys because our rock music here in Columbus just, for lack of a better phrase, sucks. But anyhow, getting into the music aspect, I mean, I think comparing Michael Jordan to LeBron James would be a lot like comparing Eric Clapton and Jimi Hendrix on the guitar. So the bottom line is it just boils down to a matter of personal opinion. You know, these two guys are obviously never going to play against each other, such as Jordan never playing against Wilt Chamberlain. So, you know, you can throw out all different kind of scenarios as far as who you think is better and who the best is. But it's just like I say with Eric Clapton and Jimi Hendrix. I mean, who are you going to give the edge to there, you know? So,
yeah,
so maybe just a different angle of looking at it, if you will. So.
Yeah, no, we appreciate the call, and I mean, it's worth noting that Prince probably has both those guys. So.
And John, we appreciate you making ESPN Radio your second choice this morning. Thank you.
Yeah, hey, no, listen. We're always happy to play second fiddle to a rock and roll station in Columbus, Ohio. It's always good. Let's go to Greg in New Hampshire. Greg, you're on first and last. What's going on, man?
Not much. Thanks for taking my call, man. Love your show.
Thank you.
The thing with LeBron is, now I'm 46, so I've watched all of Jordan's career and I watched all of LeBron's career. And for me, it's more along the lines of legit Hall of Famers that Jordan beat or kept from winning championships or beat on the way to winning championships. And legit, you know, and LeBron. I don't see as many Hall of Famers that LeBron is beating. I know, you know, you can't blame LeBron for the era that he plays in, but I think that's why, for me, Jordan is always going to be a little bit better because, I mean, Stockton and Malone didn't get any championships, legit Hall of Famers, because of Michael Jordan. Ewing, no championships because of Michael Jordan. What, Charles Barkley, he chased Charles Barkley all over the place. Charles still couldn't win a championship. And, I mean, LeBron, what is he? Is he 1-1 or 1-2 against Tim Duncan and the guys down in San Antonio? He's 1-1 against the Warriors team. It's, for me, that's why Jordan will always be that much better.
Yeah, and so that's interesting to me because, again, this idea that Michael Jordan, had a more difficult Eastern Conference to go through, but again, you bring up the people he beat in the championship. Like Stockton and Malone is the only one to me that jumps off as more star power in one particular championship. Like, yeah, Charles Barkley was a Hall of Famer, but that's the notable name that sticks out for most of us when we remember that Suns team. It's Stockton and Malone on the other one. You're talking about a Warriors team that, I mean, is loaded with multiple guys. The Oklahoma City team that LeBron went through, JBT just mentioned, has probably 3 guys that are potential Hall of Famers going forward, and Harden, Westbrook, and Durant. Like that team. So are we going to, I'm asking people to weight it, saying, yes, is who LeBron James is beating on the top end coming out of the Western Conference. If you don't value the East, is that enough to make up for it, or do you need that hard road to get there? Do you need that, or is beating the best at their best enough for you when it gets to those highest levels? That's what I'm asking you to wait. We'll get back to that in a little bit, the rest of the NBA playoffs, the baseball action from last night, but we got to pay off something that we owe everyone around here. You know what time it is. This one's for you, hockey guy.
This one's for you, hockey guy.
Slap pass out to center. Knocked down through the middle of the ice. Terrace into the zone. Terrace, his shot blocked. Gets his own rebound, cuts in. Scores! Kyle Terrace wins the game!
The rebound carried along. Here's Ovechkin and a shot. Second effort, he scores! Alex Ovechkin between the dots. 12-13 to go. It's 4-2 Washington.
That's it. Oh my God. For the first time in their history, the Predators are going to go to the Western Conference Final.
Send it up the middle of the ice for McDavid. He'll gain the line off balance. Letestu to Draisaitl. Feeds Lucic. Back to Draisaitl. One-timer scored. Draisaitl's going to hat-trick. And 5 points. And Edmonton is blowing Anaheim right out of Game 6. It's 7-1 Oilers.
Those calls courtesy of TSN 1200, Capitals 24/7 Radio Network, CHED, and 102.5 The Game. Over the weekend, Washington, the Caps, that 4-2 win, pulls the series to 3-2 going into Game 6. Ottawa takes a 3-2 lead over the Rangers. Sorry, guys. Know that one hits close to home on the staff. Great.
It does because the series should be over. It should have been 4-1 Rangers. That's it.
Yeah, draw me a picture of shoulda. Let me know what it looks like. The Nashville Predators, man. The unlikely story, they win that series 4-2 going on to the Western Conference Finals. The unlikely win over the top-seeded Blackhawks in the first round. Now going on there in Edmonton, the dominant performance in the first period over Anaheim. That series is now tied 3-3 going into a Game 7. Should be very exciting there. So a lot of interesting NHL action from this weekend. Coming up tonight, we'll have Game 6, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, Washington and Pitt, the most high-profile series, I'd say, of this round in the playoffs. Looking forward to it. Guys, I'm hoping for the best for you. And the Rangers, too.
Thank you for listening to the First and Last podcast. You can listen and subscribe to all ESPN podcasts in the Listen tab of the ESPN app. First and Last.